Hey guys, try another match review. This time for Esper Vial, since it's another one of Deps's more difficult matchups. Had a few interesting games recently, a few not so interesting games recently from versus the deck. So go through a few games and try and give you a general idea of my thought process at any given point during the matchup and some interesting spots as they come up. So this first set of games is 3 games from the showcase event that just happened on Magic Online on Sunday. So this was round 5 in the XO bracket. So I did not know what my opponent was on going into the first game. So looking at this hand in the dark, it's not very good. It can't deploy scrying at all. There's no rain source. It can't play duress on 1 because the bog comes into play tapped. Needle may or may not be of high value depending on the matchup, and there's really no path to the combo. So we're missing the ability to actively disrupt on the first turn unless the needle ends up being very good, and we're missing a path to the combo, and we're missing an entire color. So I think this is an easy mulligan. So our 6 is somewhat better in that we have stage and depths, but again we're now missing both colors. We can't disrupt the opponent anyway. We can't really do anything. So I think a random 5 is again better than this hand. So this hand it's not the best hand you'd ever see, but for a 5 this hand is really good. So we have the ability to immediately play a disruption spell and then immediately have a turn 3 combo if things go right. So we could turn 1 Thoughtseize into turn 2 Scrying into turn 3 combo. So it's just a matter of what cards go on the bottom. In this case, I think it's a redundant Hex Mage. We don't really need 2 Hex Mages here. And I think we need both lands. We need the Scrying, so it's one of the discard spells. And whenever you have the choice between Thoughtseize and Duress, unless you know your opponent's on something like Burn, or some heavily damage-based matchup, I think it's always correct to keep the Thoughtseize, since it can take everything and Duress is limited. So our opponent goes Polluted Delta Go. This doesn't give us a ton of information. It could still be a variety of decks from this spot, but luckily our first turn is going to be Thoughtseizing, so that should give us some clarity. Our first draw step is a second Urborg, which is less than ideal. But yeah, these things happen when you run 8 legendary lands in your deck. So the opponent is on Esper Vial. This hand is just absolutely brutal for us, as they have 4 different answers to the combo in hand, plus a Strix that's going to be able to block and draw a card. So there's a couple of different ways to look at this. You could look at it as cutting them off the Strix to keep them down a card and not have to deal with a flying blocker. But that's likely going to be a thing in the future anyway with the Flicker Wisp. The Venser is a problem for down the line. If they get to 4 mana, at the very least, they have to hold up 4 mana to be able to do that. As good as the Flicker Wisp is, it is a sorcery speed effect, and here it's not really doing a ton. So I think what we have to do is attack the least. the answers that require them to hold up the least amount of mana. So in this case, I think it's the first Swords to Plowshares, but we would need to draw very well to win this game from here. But I think we definitely take the plow in that spot. So on their turn, they just deploy the Strix. Heads up play by the opponent in that they preserve their fetch for future use. Since they only had 2 lands, they're probably looking to ideally draw at least a 3rd, since they have Flicker Wisp, and probably a 4th because of the Venser at some point. So they play the Strix and go. We draw a Depths, which is good. One of the keys in this matchup is basically forcing them to leave up answers. So if they don't have a Vial, and in the games where they don't have Vial, there's a real cost for them having to not be able to deploy some of their 3 drops, some of the most devastating plays the Soul Herder, the Recruiter, which can tutor, and especially Peacekeeper, which we have 0 outs to in game 1. So if we can prevent them from ever having clean windows to just tap 3 for a Recruiter to get a Peacekeeper, or tapping for a Soul Herder to start the value engine gene, that's kind of where we want to be as soon as possible. So I think from here we just play out the Hex Mage, even though we know it's probably not going anywhere. We're at least going to tie their mana up. So from here they draw a Scrubland and play a Scrubland. So we still know 4 of their 5 cards, and we know, barring them making a mistake here, we're not going to be able to win. But they don't know that. We could easily have something like a Not of This World, which would, make their Flicker Wisp not quite good enough. Their Baleful Strix too. Their Sword Splasher, I should say. Kind of losing it here. So the opponent swings in, which is never a good sign. It means something very good's coming behind it. They're basically demonstrating 0 fear for the combo in play. So in this case, it turns out to be Charming Prince was one of their draws. So they actually have a lot of options in this particular spot. They could just straight up gain the 3 life and go to 23, which is a miserable place for us to be because they already have a blue-black flying blocker, and we know they have a white flying creature in their hand as well. So hitting them twice through multiple flyers when Step can't even push through on any of the turns makes things quite difficult. They could choose to scry since they already have an answer in hand, or they could just use the blink function. So basically the world is theirs in this particular sequence, what they choose to do. So they choose to blink the Strix instead, which will give them the flying Death Touch blocker, and then also another draw, while also leaving Swords to Plowshares up. So, I mean, technically they would be dead in this spot to exactly Not of This World for the Swords to Plowshare, and then like Fetch Land, Crop Rotation, or Elvish Spirit Guide. Someone's Scrying. Like, there are ways they could die from this spot, but they're pretty narrow, and I think the opponent's line was fine. They're just getting the value chain started. So from here, we obviously don't have any of that stuff, so we have to just let the turn come to us. We draw Thoughtseize, which is pretty good. Can start working on their remaining answers. So they choose not to Swords to Plowshares in this spot, which makes a lot of sense, because even if we combo in response and they know they have an answer, we could have a Crop Rotation for Step, or Not of This World for their last remaining answer, so it doesn't make any sense to spew the Swords to Plowshares. So they let it happen. So earlier we took the Plow to kind of deny their mana to make them keep answers up. In this case, if we leave them with the Flicker Wisp, they're going to have multiple colors of blockers. They can choose to go over to 23 if they decide to blink the Charming Prince. They also have the 4th land for Venser. So just taking the Plow doesn't really get us anywhere, because they can still deploy the Flicker Wisp and know they're going to be fine. They can be at 23 life with 2 different colors of blockers. So earlier we thought we could take a line where taking the Plow would restrict their ability to develop. In this case, it doesn't really restrict their ability to develop at all. So I think the most problematic card, even though it's a little bit counterintuitive here, is the Flicker Wisp. They're just going to get so much value off of it, and our options to push through it are extremely limited. So I think that's the take here. Them having 2 answers in hand is still going to be extremely difficult for us to push through. So from this spot, we could hold the Sylvan Scrying to try and eventually get a Sejiri Step to get through the Strix. The answer to the issue with that is we can't take them off of instant speed answers at this point, so there's no way we're ever going to be sorcery speeding a Step to kill them, because they'll just Plow it in response, Venser it in response. And in 2 turns, they would have 5 lands, so they could theoretically do both of those in the same turn. So even if we draw an Out of This World, that's kind of cut off too. So it's just kind of all around bad. So I think the best use of the scrying now is to set up the possibility to combo a second time. So we could get a second depths, but I think the better play is to actually get a stage. That way, if they draw a wasteland, we're at least prepared to combo through the wasteland, so that if we draw ways to play around the cards that are in their hand, either additional discard or Not of This World or crop rotation, things like that, we don't just pack it into a wasteland too. So I think that's what I chose to do here. So get the stage to set up for that in future turns. So their draw for the return was Imperial Recruiter, which is pretty devastating. We currently can't even beat the 2 cards that are in their hand. You know, much less once that thing starts flickering the cards that are in play. It's a 2 to return, it's 3 life a turn, it's an extra draw a turn, whatever they choose. It's all pretty good for them, all pretty bad for us. So that attack by the opponent I thought was a little bit on the greedy side. From this spot, we know their entire hand, and if we just happened to have an Out of This Worldness in hand, they would have lost the game from this spot, unless they chose to Swords one of their own creatures, which was always an option. But I don't know that that was I don't know that that had to happen for 1 point of damage. But either way, we don't have anything to punish them, so we just have to move to our turn. We draw a second depths, so that's kind of good because we can combo twice. However, I think it's just a little bit too late in this spot. Here they're going to get in with the Strix again. But it's obviously a little bit different this turn, knowing that they're going to either blank it or blank for life or blank for another tutor. Okay, so in this sequence, there wasn't really anything. We weren't going to be able to beat this, so no matter if we decided a combo, it was just going to eat us Swords to Plowshares, and at any point, they can bounce the Recruiter and get Peacekeeper and lock us out, or just continue the value train. So I just decided to scoop from this point to save some time. So that game was kind of just one example of how this matchup can be extremely bad. Like when you see their hand and they have 4 answers, but their deck is constructed in such a way where they just happen to have a lot of answers to what we're doing. And we have to live with the games where they're just overloaded on answers. So in game 2, this is another hand where we can't really cast our spells. The Thoughtseize we can't really play. The Abrupt Decay we can't really play. So even though we have Adepts, a little bit of protection and a crop rotation, we can't really play Magic from here at the moment. This hand is significantly better. We can play the Disruption on 1. We have a Needle either for their Vial, their Caracas, their Teferi, their Wasteland, whatever we think the problem is going to be. And we have the most important piece of the combo in Depths. So, and oddly, we have a live, we're live to draw any stage. We're live to draw crop rotation. We're live to draw Hexmage too, because we could always float a black from the Bayou, Ghost Quarter-owned Bayou for basic swamp, and play Hexmage that way. So we're kind of live to draw any of the tutors, any of the Hexmages, any of the stages to combo, plus 3 very good important cards in the matchup. So I guess before we start this game, I should also kind of go through real quick how I board versus Esper Vial. We bring in Abrupt Decay, or I bring in Abrupt Decays because obviously Peacekeeper's a real problem. Vial's one of their best cards, and obviously they have a variety of utility creatures that just need to die at certain points, and there's going to be a handful of games where you'll be able to just remove a flyer to push through at times. So Abrupt Decay is just an all-around good card in the matchup. I also bring in 3 Sylvan Safekeepers. They have so many answers to what we're doing, and Safekeepers counterplay to basically all of them other than Peacekeeper, so that's also what I bring in. From their side, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to see some number of Gilded Drakes on top of all of the main deck cards. So that's a card to keep in mind during the post-board matchup. So as far as this hand goes, it's a 6, so I think the easy bottom here is Caracas. It does the least and isn't really what we're looking for in this spot. So the Thoughtseize brings significantly better news than the Thoughtseize in game 1. So they currently have 2 if you count Baron, but sorcery speed, ground creature that requires double blue mana is a little bit easier to play around when they don't have the Vial, which they don't have here. So one of the issues that's come up in a decent percentage, I wouldn't say like a huge percentage, but a decent percentage of games is Esper Vial can have some issues with its mana. It's running a bunch of different colors, a bunch of cards in double colors, and the 4 Vials. So, and it's running a couple Wastelands. So the mana's stretched a little on the thin side. So you'll see these games where you can try to get some edge just by essentially trying to attack that a little bit. So normally if you see a Swords to Plowshares, that's an answer to our combo. But in this case, I think actually the Brainstorm is the best card in their hand, because they may not be able to deploy any of these cards in their hand other than the Swords to Plowshare if they brick for a couple of turns. We also have a Not of This World in hand, so we can, at the moment, we can answer the Swords to Plowshares. So I think what we really want to do here is basically make them hiccup for a few turns and hope that puts us in a spot where we can really pinch them. So I ended up taking the Brainstorm. So for their first turn, we knew about everything else, so they drew the Vial and played the Vial. So we know they still have no second land. So we draw the Stage, which is a great play, or great draw. We had a lot of outs, a lot of paths to the combo over the first couple of turns, but hitting it right away and knowing we have it's nice. So from here, even though they don't have an answer to the combo in hand outside of Plow as far as creature-based stuff goes, I think Vial is still, they're not going to be able to develop at all unless they top deck a land immediately if we needle the Vial. So I think it's worth the risk of them drawing a Wasteland or drawing a Caracas. They only have 1 copy of Caracas usually. It's usually 3 copies of Wasteland post-board, so there's some risk. But I think we can still win through the Wasteland since we have the full combo plus Ghost Quarter. So if we draw any mana source, we can still win through that. So I think it's correct to just continue with the strategy we started with the Thoughtseize, and try and just prevent them from developing entirely while working towards our combo. So as far as which land drop to play here, I think it's the Stage, and we play the Needle off the Stage because the deck has obviously 8 accelerants. So it is 4 Elvish Spirit Guides, 4 Lotus Petals, and then on top of that it also has 4 crop rotations. So if we draw any of those cards on the next turn, on turn 3 we'll be able to combo on turn 3 instead of on turn 4. So that's the line I ended up taking. So they basically put a Vial and they did not draw a land. So correct sequencing on the Stage pays off as we do draw an Accelerant. So from here we can just play out, represent the full combo. Normally in this spot there's an argument to be made that since we have a protection piece and they only have 1 land, that we could combo during their upkeep. We could make the token during their upkeep to play around the top deck Wasteland. In this case, I think that's incorrect because we already have an answer to that in Ghost Quarter, so we could just wait, take our next turn, play Ghost Quarter, and still win through a Wasteland. But what this does is if they happen to top deck exactly Caracas, they have to, if they don't play it, we just make the 20/20 against their Tundra with our Not of This World. But if they do, then we can just wait a turn and play the Ghost Quarter. So by waiting and allowing them to theoretically find a Wasteland, we just don't up and die to their one of Caracas for no reason. So the opponent draws a fetch land for the turn, so we still know 5 of their 6 cards. So from this spot, it's one of those situations where it's probably not getting much better. Their last card would need to be exactly a second Swords to Plowshares or a Force of Will to beat us. Or Force of Negation, I guess, if they wait until our upkeep to cast Swords to Plowshares. The other way they could get there is if they brainstorm into a Force, since they already have the Plow. But again, it's one of those spots where they're more likely to draw into additional lands and start playing disruption pieces than we are to find, like, if they draw one more land, they can leave Plow up and play Meddling Mage on Not of This World, that kind of thing. So this is just clearly a spot where this is the best place to go. So they Plow, we Not of This World, and luckily they didn't have their one unknown was not a second Plow or a Force of Will, so we're able to take game 2. So this hand doesn't look great at first glance, but it's actually a turn 2 combo, since we could just play Bayou Thoughtseize on 1 to get information, and then if the coast is clear of counter magic, Bayou Hexmage on turn 2, and then pitch the Spirit Guide to crop rotation into Dark Depths. Or the other way around, like float 2 black if you like fear some sort of weird removal spell, but the removal spell is generally going to be Swords to Plowshares, so we're not going to, if we see a Swords, we're not going to combo into it anyway. But you can float 2 black and then crop off the green into Dark Depths and then play Hexmage if you're worried about removal in other matchups. So I think even though we don't currently have an answer to more than one piece of interaction, we have a turn 2 combo. We have the Ghost Quarter in case they have Caracas or Wasteland. I think this is enough interplay where this is a good hand to keep. So they start off on a turn 1 Vial. So on our first turn, we draw Needle, which is an outstanding draw. That'll help with whatever we think the problem is. So we're going to get to Thoughtseize them here, get full information, and then Needle whatever the problem is, whether we think that's going to be Caracas, Wasteland, Vial, Teferi, whatever we think the problem card's going to be. There's no need to preemptively Needle Vial here. There's no 1-drop that we're really worried about coming out of this deck. Basically all of its good creatures in the matchup are all 2 and up, so we can safely let them get a counter on this. So they do have the Wasteland. Very similar to last game, though. They're kind of color locked. So they're going to need to draw a fetch land or they can't play this Baleful Strix. They're obviously short of the 3-drops as well. The only thing that they don't need a colored source to cast at the moment is if they draw like another Wasteland or something as the Recruiter. Otherwise, they're going to need to draw another dual land or another fetch to play anything in their hand. So given the composition of their deck post-board, Flicker Wisp is one of the more annoying cards, because not only do they have the Baleful Strix as blue flyers, but they're also bringing in Gilded Drake as blue flyers. So when we're looking to be able to use a Shuziri step to kill them, the Flicker Wisp is a huge problem. Not only is blocking into Flicker Wisp the following turn a huge issue, but if they just play it out even, to say like Flicker Wisp our Needle, it unlocks their Vial for a turn and they can play another creature. So they could do something like, if they get to their third turn, Flicker Wisp our Needle, and while it's out, Vial in a Recruiter, Recruiter, and then yeah, it can kind of get ugly from there. So, or even Vial in the Soul Herder and bounce the Flicker Wisp, or whatever they think they need to do. So I think the biggest problem card in this hand is actually the Flicker Wisp. And we'll try and again play on the mana issues. So the opponent drew a Tundra and elected to play it. So that does open up their Recruiter, it does open up their Soul Herder. It's a little surprising that they would choose to play that over the Wasteland. So we draw Thoughtseize for the turn. So we do have the option to combo here. We know they can't stop it. The issue with that is if we do that, we know they're going to have whatever they draw for the turn could be an answer. They're also going to have a Vial on too, which means they're going to be able to Vial in the Strix, which if we use the crop rotation to combo this turn, we won't be able to, barring a good top deck, we won't be able to get through the Strix to kill them, which means their turn could be something like Vial in, Strix, draw a card, play Soul Herder, blank Strix, draw a card, or they could also just Vial in, Strix, play Recruiter, and grab something like Peacekeeper, or some other one of their chains that's equally devastating. So even though it might look appealing because they don't have an answer, they're going to see, they're either going to tutor or they're going to draw several cards. And they really only need to find one answer since we don't currently have a way to protect it. So since we drew the Thoughtseize, I think the clear line here is to Thoughtseize again, and strip away their tutor, and then Needle the Vial again, and that cuts them off of Strix. This does allow them to have Wasteland, but we do have the Ghost Quarter for Wasteland, and if they choose to preemptively Wasteland us, we have Elvish Spirit Guide, crop rotation. If they sit on the Wasteland, we still have the ability to threaten the combo next turn while working through the Wasteland. So I think the clear Needle here is Vial. So the Recruiter is clearly the best card in their hand. It can clearly get the most problematic cards, because the one card we can't deal with right now is Peacekeeper. We don't have an Abrupt Decay in hand. We don't have a discard spell to take it unless we draw one off the top next turn. So that's the card we're the most worried about. So we do that, we Needle the Vial, and we pass. Okay, so they top decked a second Recruiter, which is really unfortunate. But that's why the good cards are in the deck, to draw them. So here they have a lot of different options. They could just go for the Peacekeeper. I'm not sure if they want to do that or if they want to go for a more value-oriented line at first. So they choose to get another tutor. So the Spellseeker probably is just come into play, get a Swords to Plowshares, would be my guess. So it's another card to be wary of as we go forward. So on our turn, we draw a Sylvan Scrying. which is pretty good. So we're again in a spot where we probably don't want to combo. If they brick next turn, we could kill them. But the number of bricks are pretty low. They could draw any plow, they could draw Gilded Drake, they could draw a variety of different cards. Even any land allows them to spell Seeker into Swords to Plowshares, or play Strix, whatever they want to do. So I don't think we're really in a position to combo here, but what we do want to do is similar to the other games, we just want to threaten the combo so that they have to respect it. So they can't just tap out for, if they don't draw a land, they can't just tap out for a 3-drop. They have to keep mana up. Yeah, it's not even like we have to, they would have to put us on Elvish Spirit Guide here. Most opponents will recognize that Ghost Quarter can get a basic at any point, so this is representing green mana, even if it's not as threatening as it would normally be. So the opponent drew and chose to do nothing. So it's an interesting spot. There are draws that they could have had where they wouldn't make a play here. For instance, if they drew another 3-drop, if they drew another Recruiter, or if they drew some counter magic like a Force of Will or something along those lines. But given our current hand, I don't see a reason to really risk it here. We have the ability to untap and Sylvan Scrying off the 2 Bayous for Dark Depths, which would allow us to pass again with the ability to Ghost Quarter Wasteland, combo in response to their Wasteland, and then have Elvish Spirit Guide crop rotation for Sejiri Step in case they drew a instant speed answer. And we're just tying their mana up at this point. So if they did draw a Swords to Plowshares, they're just going to have to sit. They can't play anything in their hand. Even if they draw a 4th land and they elect to play something like Soul Herder or Spellseeker, they're only going to have 1 mana up for an answer. So I just think it makes a lot more sense to wait a turn and have the combo with protection as opposed to just hoping they didn't draw the answer in their 1-turn window. So that's what we elect to do. Dark Depth draw is nice. I mean, we were going to tutor for it anyway with the scrying, but on the off chance things go really, really sideways, it's nice to have another way to start a rebuild. So we'll take it. One of the things that I'm always looking for windows for is chip damage. So in this case, it's nice to have a situation where we know nothing weird's going to jump in front of it with a vial. There's no real danger here to swinging. So the chip damage puts them to 17, which is perfect because one of the main issues, or one thing we have to worry about if they were at, say, 19, is Charming Prince or something along, like if they gain 3 life and go over 20, or they happen to have like a, like a Whisper, some creature that they can Swords to Plowshares to also put them over 20 if they elected to not play into like a crop rotation step. But having them at 17 and taking Charming Prince off the table is nice. So from here, again, you could make the argument to combo to play around a 2nd copy of Wasteland. Given that we actually can beat a 2nd Wasteland by rotating into a stage with the Spirit Guide and then Ghost Quartering the first. When they respond, we Hexmage. When they respond, then we can stage. So we can technically combo through 2 Wastelands here. So I think it's pretty safe to wait, for the same reasons as before. This beats a Gilded Drake. This lets us be aware of a Caracas before it happens. That sort of stuff. So they draw and pass again. So there's 2 unknowns. Similar to game 2, if their last 2 cards are exactly Swords to Plowshares, if they drew running Swords to Plowshares, or if they drew swords and a Force of Will, or swords and a Brainstorm, and Brainstorm into a force or a Force of Negation. Those are the kind of things that you accept losing to. So this is a pretty good spot. So this is kind of as good as it's going to get. So we go for it. We Wasteland. We Ghost Quarter their Wasteland, which, interesting, they just allow it to happen. So they use it to, I guess, acknowledging that wastelanding our depths doesn't actually do anything in that spot because we just respond anyway. Their options were really to wasteland one of our bayous, which I don't think makes a difference in the outcome of the game, or to just let it happen to fix their mana. So if they make it through this situation, they can play their Baleful Strix, that sort of thing. So I think the line makes sense. So we end up going for it. So one of their draws was the Plow. They wait correctly until our upkeep to turn on something like Force of Negation if they happen to have it, and make us use mana on our own turn. So we crop Rotation for step. And luckily that was good enough. So yeah, that's not always how these games go. I would say that Esper Vial is definitely favored, and it feels like we kind of have to, I guess threading the needle is kind of the best way to describe it. We want to be really aware of the kind of hands that we can fight them with. The primary things that I would focus on are making sure we can absolutely threaten the combo as early as possible. You really want to have a plan for like having the combo on board on turn 3, or in the absence of that, like a clear developed plan of, okay, well, I have my discard spell here. I have either a really important card in the matchup, like a Sylvan Safekeeper, or not as well, something along those lines, like something where there's a realistic chance to think like a turn 4 combo is going to get there. We want to watch out for any and all attempts to prevent them from basically developing, because if they get started, it's basically impossible to stop. Like once they have a value engine going, and like unless they make a mistake, we're just not coming back from that. So the best way to do that is to actively attack their vials, whether that's through a decay, a needle, whatever you need to do to make that happen. You know, one of the other, let's see if I can find another quick match here. Okay, we'll try this one. So yeah, like here's basically, like if you could design a perfect depths hand against Esper Vial, this would probably be it. You have a really fast combo, an answer to a land-based issue, whether that's Wasteland or Caracas, and a Safekeeper to protect as you go. So this is basically just a Vial start for them, a combo start for us. So they don't have a second land drop in this game, which is really good. So we can basically put the combo on the table. Okay, so from here, this hand to me, the way the first couple turns of this played out, this is post board if the safekeeper didn't make it obvious. One of the things that stood out to me in this particular game, and is that I don't think they keep a hand like this unless they have more than one answer to the token. I know Vial's powerful, but one land Vial without a Brainstorm is a fairly risky thing against a Needle deck, unless you have counter magic to protect it, because this hand basically doesn't function if these Vials get answered. So I think it's a fair bet that they have a 2 casting cost answer, whether that's Charming Prince to go over 20 life, or Gilded Drake to steal the token outright. So I elected to not go for it at the end of their second turn. Just I thought the probability that they would have an answer was just way too high. And it didn't make any sense, and we had the ability to untap and play Safekeeper for protection. So from here, no matter what we played, if they were going to take an action, they can do that anyway. So I like to start with the Inquisition to see what happens. So they elect to plow here. So there's just no way comboing in this kind of spot can be good. Like, they just have to have an answer. So I don't think we can safely combo here. So circling back to the Either Vial conversation as far as ways that we can deal with it with Needles and Abrupt Decay, another way that we can kind of really set them back is in weird situations that pop up where we can just Hex Mage to take the counters off the Vial. It's a common strategy against Death and Taxes, where if they have a Vial on 3, if you can set up a situation where you have a Hex Mage and a stage-based combo, or double Hex Mage, you can let them activate the Vial, and then you can take the counters off the Vial, and the Flicker Wisp can't come in. So similar to this, we can kind of stunt their development a little bit, because we know we have another backup Hex Mage. We can put these Vials back to 0 and 1, at which point they're not going to be able to get to 3 in time to answer the combo. So I think it's fine to let the Plow resolve here, or, well, take the Vials off the counter, essentially. So they name a Hex Mage, which is unfortunate. It actually delays us a turn. But that's not the end of the world, given the composition of our hand. So I have 4 more answers to the combo in hand, with Flicker Wisp, Venser, and double Gilded Drake. In this case, now that they've delayed us a full turn, their first Vial is going to get up to 3. So we can't cut them off of only one. We can't put them in a situation where only one Vial does something. So similar to before with Sajiri's Step, we don't want them to have the white flyer. We want to kind of limit them to blue flyers. So I think the Flicker Wisp is the take. So from here we can play a Forest and use our Sylvan Scrying to get the Thespian stage, since we have to combo that way now that the Meddling Mages cut us off. This will also allow us to have a 4th mana next turn, which will allow us to play the Safekeeper with the combo with 2 Safekeeper activations up. So I think that's a very good spot. So yeah, so I think we just play we played the stage, played the Safekeeper past. At the end of our turn, they Vialed in Gilded Drake. Sorry for clicking through that. And we used the Forest to, so we don't have to combo there. We use the tapped Forest to protect the Safekeeper. So through one of the Drakes, so we know their hand is a second Drake and a Venser. So their draw for the turn they played was a Tundra, so we know exactly what their hand is. They can only play the Gilded Drake, which we can use the Safekeeper to stop. And it's worth noting that in this game, the Hex Mage taking the counters off the Vial was decisive, because the lead Vial would have had 4 counters in this turn, and they would have been able to actually prevent us from comboing in this spot. So that's another angle. It's another angle to look out for. Okay, so that was a game where things went really well, or a match where things went really well. Let's try, to be fair, a match where we get utterly destroyed. Okay, so we're post board again. This is another hand where we can't really play Magic, so we're basically just hoping to top deck. And that's just not really where we want to be. So we choose to ship this. This is the second hand. It's a little awkward, but we have multiple protection pieces, which are really important. It's kind of an iffy proposition, but this is just the kind of matchup that post board we're just not likely to win on 5 cards. So when we have a Vial or a permanent based ish Peacekeeper and whatever the problem ends up being, so when we have a Decay, we have 2 different protection pieces from what they have going on. It's not great, but I think it's better than a random 5. So we just run out of Safekeeper here. Under normal other circumstances, I would argue that sometimes you would want to wait on the Safekeeper to maybe have an extra mana and play it on the turn you're going to combo, so they can't just Swords it off the table. But in this case, we do have a Not of This World, so if they use, which they do, if they have a Swords and use it in this spot, we're kind of okay with that. So here we draw a Sylvan Scrying, so I think the Depths is the more important piece of the combo, so we get a Depths there. That just makes us either any black source or a stage away from being able to combo. They have a Vial on turn 2. So we have another Scrying, which is nice. So we can get the stage. The stage is the less important of the combo lands in case a player gets really, impatient. Sometimes players will just fire off their Wastelands, Delver style. So I always want to expose the stage first. Jace TMST is MSST is a very, very good player, so I didn't expect that to happen here, but just habit forming. So they have a Recruiter here. For a Charming Prince, which is problematic for reasons we've outlined in other games. The optionality is just crazy to force us to hit them twice, to double scry, to blink the tutor and get another tutor. It's just really, really solid. Second Hex Mage is not a very good draw, but at least we have the combo in play. We have protection with Not of This World, so it could be worse. So they play Meddling Mage. They name Crop Rotation. So the Caracas is an issue. Even if they don't have another answer in hand, we know they can go to 21. So if we make a token, they bounce the token with Caracas. We Not of This World. We attack them. It only puts them to 1. They untap and Caracas again, unless we draw exactly an answer to Caracas, which I don't think is a winning line. So at the end of their turn, we Abrupt Decay the Vial just to basically reduce the amount of headaches we have to worry about. I think it's worth the risk of exposing ourselves to Peacekeeper to not have to deal with Gilded Drake or Flicker Wisp or whatever they could possibly have on top of the problems we already have on board. So here we draw a Spirit Guide, which doesn't really particularly do anything in this spot. So their Recruiter comes back, and they get a Soul Herder. So this is the point in the game where they've had too much freedom to develop their board, essentially. And these are the games that we kind of lose handily unless they make a mistake. So basically, they have so many choices here. All of them are really bad for us. So they're electing to bounce the Prince, which makes the Soul Hoarder bigger. And they did elect to go to 21 life. So we draw a Ghost Quarter here, which is one of the better draws in the deck, honestly, because now we can get rid of the Caracas and go after them and hope that their answers are limited. We know for a fact that they're going to be able to tutor at will off the Recruiter, so the likelihood of success from this board position is extremely low. So we go for it. They swords, we not of this world, and they have a second swords. So there's basically, we were already in really bad shape, but there's no coming back from this situation. So at this point, it's officially scoop phase. So, you know, whenever we're talking about this matchup, there's just going to be, and for this particular game, it may have been correct to go to 5 just because the hand was slow. And again, I think one of the main ways to be able to successfully attack this deck is to not get to the point in this game where they're doing things like Soul Herdering every turn, or for Recruiter or Charming Prince or what have you. So keeping them off Vial and keeping them off the ability to deploy 2 and 3 drops into play is kind of the main spot. You can sometimes work your way through those situations with something like Safekeeper, comboing twice or stuff like that, but it's just very, very difficult. With this card, prioritize taking the really, really devastating cards unless you have a direct window to winning. So on turn 1, if you can take the Vial and really make them stumble, that's fine. But outside of like obvious take Swords to Plowshare lines, taking Flicker Wisp is really important. Taking Recruiter of the Guard is really important. Those are often the cards that are really putting the dagger in the coffin, so to speak. And just get reps against the deck. If you really want to, there are plenty of other cards. I know Slow Depths and certain versions of Turbo run some additional removal, whether that's Plague Engineer or additional Abrupt Decays. Cards like that will help. I guess if you want to get really cheeky, you could run something like Cabal Pit as like a tutorable out to Peacekeeper. Since one of my issues with cards like Engineer is their creature base is kind of diversified, so I don't think it's at its strongest here. But also you just can't find them on command, so the ideal card for a lands-based tutor shell would be something that you can go get. I think Blast Zone's probably just too slow. You're not going to be able to get it up to 2 or 3 in any kind of reasonable time frame and combo. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe something like that's worth if this deck becomes a major part of the metagame as far as percentage of players playing it. But I haven't really seen that yet. There's a number of really good players that are playing it, but I haven't seen it played in numbers. So we'll see as it goes. But anyway, we're pushing an hour here and went through about 5 games. So I think I'm going to stop for now. So if you guys enjoyed this or have any feedback on ways I could make it better, just let me know. And hopefully I'll do some more. All right, thanks.